Hey, welcome to my sewing room. It's Yvonne from the Fabric Hut. Today we're going to work on another project, a little quick project for us. We're making little pot holders. Let me step aside. I have some nasty little pot holders I've been making. Filthy, ready for new ones. So I thought this would be a great project for our little morning mist mini strips. So we're going to get going on this. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do some quilt-as-you-go. So hey, get your scissors, get your coffee, and let's head to the sewing machine.
I have said it before. I'm going to say it again. I love this little morning mist collection of the 40 mini strips. It is just so much fun, and you can make so many cool little things with them and not have to do a bunch of cutting. So it's wonderful. So today what we're going to do is start by adjusting a couple of our strips here for our pot holder. This is going to be our little flange. And then these guys, let's lay them out. Okay, I have my batting and my Insul-Bright. If you want to use a different type of heat protection, there's some that is just the shiny part. Just put in an extra layer of batting so that you have at least 2 layers of batting. Okay, we're going to lay these out so I can make sure. Okay, this is the one that I was going to use on the top. We are not going to cut that one. The rest of these we are going to stack up, and we're going to cut 2.5 inches off of one end of them because we want room for this top one to be on the top. And we're just starting with a 10-inch square. So if I start with a 10-inch here and then add that to the top, we're going to have a rectangle instead of a square, and we don't want that. Okay, I have them all lined up. I have my 2.5-inch ruler, so I can just lay that right on the end. And if I can find my rotary cutter, we will cut that down. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I took my rotary cutter over to my main cutting station, and I failed to bring it back with me. So here we are at 2.5, and I'm just going to give that a little cut. I'm holding my cutter funny just so my hand's not in your way. That's typically not how I cut with it. I'm going to set those aside. So with a rotary cutter like this, I love this new one by Fomor. This is a beautiful cutter. It is weighted so nicely. So with this one, you're going to hold it this way with your finger on top. The thing I really like about this cutter is that here in the center, it has ball bearings, or I think that's what they're called. It looks like ball bearings to my untrained eye. So it rolls very smoothly. But the other thing is that adds just a little bit more weight to where I don't have to push quite so hard. And because I'm having hand issues, that makes all the difference in the world for me. It just cuts so nicely. And check out how easy it is to change the blade. Watch this. Just spin that baby off of there. And there's your blade. And then pop that back on and spin. There's no little brace in there you have to get lined up or anything. And if I can get my hand to work, it just spins right back on. So this is just a fabulous little rotary cutter for these sorts of projects. Okay, so we cut those down to 7.5 inches. Now we need to cut, this is our flange. So when you use a flange, you can have a big flange if you'd like, but I want a nice tiny one. So I'm going to cut this in half. So it's a 2.5. I'm going to cut it to 1.25. I'm using my ruler, not the markings on my board, because if I use the markings on my board, I have to make sure that this is laying even and everything. Right here, I can just line it up on the 1.25 and give it a quick cut. Open the blade. And there we go. All right, so I have an extra one for another set later if I want. Okay, set all this cutting stuff aside. We're ready to get going. let's layer. We have Insul-Bright. We have just regular batting, cotton batting. You notice I don't have a backing on here yet. We're not putting a backing because we're going to do a quilt as you go, and I don't want to have to bind this. So we're going to do a pillowcase binding with it. I'll share that information with you in a moment. But I'm going to fold this in half, and just with my pen, give it a little touch here so I can see the half on the other side, and a little touch there. And so here's my mark right there. Here's my mark right here. And I'm just going to give it a quick little, these pens don't work great on batting, but it's going to give me enough of almost just a tear line that I can see it. Okay. I'm going to lay these back out in my beautiful arrangement. This is the one that's going to go on the top. So I want that in the center. At the top on the side. I'm just going to center it over that line right there. Now I can fold it and get it exactly, but this is a potholder and it's going to be close enough. Okay, then I'm going to put in dark one next right there, right? Okay, these guys are going to sit aside for a moment. We are doing quilt as you go. So a couple of things we need to do. First of all, I need to take off my 1/4 inch foot with the guide, because this little guide is going to come along and it's going to snag my batting and it's not going to move well. If you're making a bunch of these or a couple of these, you may want to take the time to put on your walking foot because it works so well with a walking foot. I'm just going to put on my 1/4 inch foot without the guide, and we'll call that good. Okay, we're going to take and roll the right side onto the left side, and we are going to stitch all the way through both fabrics, the batting and the Insul-Bright. Now I have the Insul-Bright on the bottom because I find that it goes through my feed dogs better than the cotton batting. Now the Insul-Bright has a shiny side and a less shiny side. Doesn't matter which one goes up or down. It's all the same. So get lined up right there. I'm using the 1/4 inch guide on my foot, and I'm going to just sew from the top. And I'm just kind of pressing down here because I did not put on my walking foot and I don't want it to creep. So we're going to just zip right along there, all the way to the bottom. Open it out, and you can take it to your iron and press, but just a little nice pull and a finger press works really well at this point. With the batting, it kind of makes an indent, so it just folds over really nicely. And then we're just going to put the next one right on top of this one, right sides together, and do the same thing. See how easy that goes? Now, when I placed my first one, I guess I didn't explain how I placed it. I put it even with the bottom because we know this is a 10-inch square. And so if they're even here, it's going to put the top in the right position for our flange and our top. Now I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing on this side. Line it up. Now I'm lining it up with the top and sewing to the middle. Again, making sure that nothing's getting stretched out of place here just by running my finger along it. There we go. Press it out nice and smooth. Oh, look how nice that looks. I love it. And the final one is going to go on right here. See how quick this is? We are only about 7 minutes into this, and we are getting close. All righty. Now at this point, if you don't feel like it's laying flat, take it to your iron and give it a quick press. I'll just run my little iron up here. I didn't bring my ironing mat up because Insul-Bright, it's not going to do any damage to my machine. And just give it a quick little press out. There we go. Okay, now we're ready for the top. Now remember our little flange? We need to press this in half. Wrong sides together. You can finger press it to start. Depending on how good that works, you may want to take your iron and just give it a little press down there. And line that up with the top of your 7.5-inch strips, just like that. Now they're not quite lined up on the edge. My seams are a little bit narrow, so I have a little overhang. That's okay. We'll trim that all up when it's time to put the back on. Okay, so we got that there. And now we want to put this one on top. So I could sew this, then come back and add this one, but I can also just layer them as such and sew it all at once. Pull it up there a little bit. Make sure everybody is even. If you feel the need to, you can pin it. But it's such a short little seam and everything just lays so nicely. You really don't need to, unless you like to. Okay. And guess what? You have the front of your pot holder all done and ready to go. Look how cool that is. Okay, now it's time to add the back. You can trim this up if you'd like. Remember it was 10-inch square, but we lost 1/2 inch here with this seam, so that's why this is a little smaller. By the time we're done, it'll be just a little smaller yet. So for the back of this, I just sewed some of the Morning Mist collection together, just any of them, and I'm going to layer that right sides together with the front. Now, at this point, we probably should get this trimmed off so that we can see where our seam is. So we're going to just bring it down so everything is even right there. Oh, this little cutter is just like butter. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over so I can see the whole back. And now I'm going to trim this guy off evenly with what we just trimmed so that it makes it easier. Oh, my machine's in my way there. Okay. Yep, I didn't put enough pressure because my machine's in the way and I was trying to be quick. You know, never rush. Things happen when you rush. Okay. Well, there we go. Looks like I chewed it up, but I don't think I did. Let's turn it over and make sure I didn't. Oh, there it goes. Oh, I've got a seam that's not pressed right, so I'm going to take a quick moment and get that pressed the right direction. There we go. So it'll lay smoother later. Okay, so now we have our pot holder that is quilted onto the batting and the Insul-Bright, and we are going to put our backing right sides together on top of that. Okay. Now, when we do a pillowcase binding, there's a couple of things that are going to happen. One is this is going to have to all fold together as a group. And you see how these want to separate? So before I start, I'm going to just do a real thin, maybe 1/8 of an inch seam just across the bottom of that so that those will stay nice and together for me. Okay, that just makes the next step a little easier. I also notice that I'm going to have these two seams in the middle of my turn. So that I can prevent these from pulling apart, I'm going to do the same thing right there. I'm just going to tack those two seams down just as a safety measure. Probably wouldn't happen, but I don't like undoing. Okay, so I've got this one tacked down. I'm going to realign like that. I'm going to use some little wonder clips and just hook this whole thing together so there's no shifting happening when I'm sewing. Especially because if you wait just a second, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to sew from this side because my backing is a little bit bigger. So if I sew from this side, I can see exactly where I want it to be. Now, this is the section that I sewed that extra seam in. So this is where I'm going to have my turning spot. Now, we secured these for turning, but now let's make it to where the back lays perfectly smooth when we turn. So I'm going to start and sew up 1/4 inch, which is about 4 stitches on my machine. Then I'm going to reverse and I'm going to go back up those 4 stitches. And I'm going to stop there and turn the whole thing. And then continue sewing all the way around. Now, I'm doing about 1/4 inch. It doesn't matter how big of a seam you do as long as it's the same all the way around. Now I know my batting is the right size. It's this backing that's a little larger, so I'm going to use the edge of my batting as my guide and go all the way up here. Stop at the corner, pivot, and continue on until I'm all the way around to this bottom clip where I have my opening. Because I need to be sure not to sew my opening closed, like I have done a bunch of times. And it's very frustrating when you do that. So that's why I still have the clip here, is to remind myself that that's my opening. And oftentimes I will use a different color clip there. I have a real large one here somewhere that is bigger than all the other clips, and I will often use that so that I recognize the difference. Or I'll use all light colors and one dark one, something like that, just because I can be a bit of an egghead and it gives me a visual. Okay, so here I am back to this final size. I want to leave about a 3-inch opening, so I'm going to sew to about here. And I'm going to stop and I'm going to pivot and I'm going to do the sew off and come back just a couple of stitches. Okay, so there we go. We have an opening here. We are going to go through and using my big shears, I'm going to trim off my corners like that, just so I get a nice pointed corner. I'm going to show you another trick for nice pointed corners here as soon as I get these all trimmed. Now, see how this is not quite the same size? Doesn't really matter. It's going to be on the inside, not going to show. Okay, so now it's time to turn it because I have trimmed my corners close to the corner, but not on the, I want a couple of stitches of thread here in the corner so that it doesn't pull out. Okay, so here's the trick. I go in with my thumb and I put my thumb all the way into the corner. I put my finger with my fingernail on top of my thumb and I turn it and I push it all the way out. Now I don't pull it out of the whole pocket yet. I do all 4 corners that same way, all the way around, thumb in the corner, fingertip, and push it through till I get all 4 of them done. And then I go in and pull one of the farthest ones through. I hope this isn't making you dizzy. Okay. And pull it all the way through. And now look, my corners are pretty much already poked out really nicely because I took that moment to just pop my finger in there first. And look at there. Okay. So now we have it all turned. Here's where the magic of those 2 extra little steps are. See how this is sewed together? It will automatically now just fold to the inside and all 3 pieces will fold. Now that little sewing up the edge a little bit, let me turn this so you can see it. See how it's locked together right there? So when I put my fingers into the back and flip it, it automatically goes right to the right place because that seam is caught exactly where we want it to be. So I can flip that in and got some extra threads there. Let me get them out of the way. And I can pop a wonder clip there. Look how easily that folded in together. There's not that little weirdness that you sometimes get right here on the corner. Put one there. And this last one, just poke that in with your finger. Give it a little tug. And it is all in there exactly where you want it to be without any funny little angles. Okay, take your little press. You can take it off to your big iron if you want. I'm just going to give it a little press because it lays pretty smoothly right here. Look at it from the front, how nicely that is laying. And now all we have to do is stitch all the way around it. And that will close up this little seam here by stitching. Now, if I were to do a 1/4 of an inch all the way around, that would not be closed. This little seam would not close with a 1/4 of an inch. So what I prefer to do is just a really tiny, like 1/8-inch seam. And I'm not going to start right on a corner because that makes it a little hard to get over that bump. I also don't want to start here in the dark green because then my white thread is going to show more. So I'm going to start here in the light color. And on my machine, the inside of this foot is about 1/8 of an inch from where I want to be. So I'm just going to line up with that. And as I come to this clamp, I'm going to make sure everything's tucked in nicely right there. And then I'm going to just give it a little pull and see how it keeps it laying nice and flat. I'm not pulling hard enough to stretch it. I'm just pulling hard enough to make sure that those seams are still folded together, just like that. And this makes it pretty non-visible. Just gives a very seamless closing there. And we'll go all the way around. Now, these are very bulky corners, so you will find that when you get to the corner, it's a little hard to get out of the corner. So I use my stiletto, and I just kind of give it a little push as I'm sewing. I'm not forcing it, but I'm helping it over that little bump. And then just right up the side. Now, I did not take the time. Typically, I will increase my stitch length. I will do that right now because it doesn't need to be little teeny piecing length here. It can be a little bit longer. So I brought it up to a 2.4. Turn my corner, get ready with my stiletto, and give it a little help through that corner. I'm just, with this hand, I'm just pushing and making sure it's in the right position. corner number 3. Typically only takes a stitch or two to get over that lump. And we are back to the beginning corner. Now remember, I didn't start right on the corner. I'm right here. So I'm going to get past that corner and just overlap my stitches just a little bit. And we are done. Just trim up those threads and you have a fabulous little pot holder. Now, it is all quilted on the inside, right? This whole section is quilted to the batting. This is not hooked to the batting at all. So what I like to do with this one is I like to come back and stitch right down the center of that seam, kind of a stitch in the ditch right there. There's nothing really going to shift anywhere. It just gives me a little more confidence that everything's going to stay put where I want it to be. If you still were unsure and wanted a little more quilting, you absolutely could go through and put some more lines or do whatever you'd like. I've been known to sew a diagonal across there, but I think that's just enough right there. And I still have my flange and I love it. Look at that. Perfect pot holder. So I hope this tutorial was very helpful. If you have any questions, drop a message in the comments and look down here at our closing. It looks pretty seamless. You have to kind of really look to see that that's where it was opened. So you have a fun sewing day. I hope you enjoy making some little pot holders with your morning mist mini strips. And I will catch you next time.